Greetings, family and friends of Roel Bikert. I'm Bruce Bode. I'm formerly an associate minister of the Fountain Street Church in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and more recently, a retired senior minister at the Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Port Townsend, Washington, which is where I still live. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in person today. However, I greatly appreciate the opportunity being provided by the video skill of Gerb Epstein to share some of my thoughts and reflections about my former professor and then later my good friend. Of the strangenesses of my life, one of the most strange to me is that Dr. Roel Bikert should turn out to be one of the great influences in my life. And adding to this strangeness is the even greater strangeness to me that Roel might say something of the same thing of me, that I had some kind of influence on his life, though of a very different sort than he on me. My first acquaintance with Roel, Dr. Bikert at that time, he was about 20 years my senior, was as a professor of an introductory course in psychology when I was a freshman student at Calvin College in 1965. I was preparing for the ministry. I remember little about that class and certainly would not have thought anything about any road that would later connect us. A deeper acquaintance occurred in my senior year at Calvin. This was 1968 and 69. There was a sensitivity type session, which were popular at that time, with a number of mostly pre-seminary and theological students that was being conducted by Roel. It went on for most of that college year, but it was still nothing that would indicate any road of deeper connection between us. It was, at the end of that school year of 1969 that Roel would leave Calvin College to become a professor at what was then Grand Valley State Colleges. Well, now let's jump some 10 years or so when Roel was establishing himself at Grand Valley State, and I was on a journey of gradual theological left turns that would take me from the Christian Reformed Church to Fountain Street Church, where I served as an associate minister for 22 years. Beginning in 1978. One of the areas that I was involved in at Fountain Street Church was organizing adult religious education classes and organizing presentations by guest speakers, which included such folks as Joseph Campbell, 3 consecutive years, 1980 to 1982. And one of those years involved inviting a number of professors from Grand Valley State to meet Joseph Campbell at Fountain Street Church, and that certainly must have included, I know it did, Professor Bikert. And perhaps it was then that we became reacquainted. Roel had a much better memory for such details than I do, and I'm sorry I can't ask him now. But at any rate, through my role in adult religious education classes at Fountain Street Church, Roel started providing lectures to members of the congregation. The first notes I have that I found in my library on this were from classes from 1985, classes, for example, taking us through Carl Jung's late life book titled Memories, Dreams, Reflections, and also notes from 1987 on something called Soul Searches, which Roel later published in this book. It's titled Soul Searches, Issues in Personal Growth. There was at that time keen interest and high energy in these classes, led as they were by Roel, with his combination of wit and wisdom, his encyclopedic knowledge, and always his great good humor. During those years, I felt, others as well, that we could ask Roel any question, and he would instantly have a completely cogent response, having already worked these matters out for himself. After some years of giving these adult religious education classes at Fountain Street Church, Roel was given dispensation from Grand Valley State to hold college credit classes at Fountain Street Church, that is to say, classes that combined students from Grand Valley receiving credit for their degrees and interested members of the Fountain Street Church who were simply engaged in hearing scintillating lectures. So this was a different format than auditing a college course where typically older adults sit in on classes for younger students. And here, it's the other way around, with the younger students, as it were, sitting in on presentation to older adults who were there because they wanted to hear what the professor had to say. Well, after Roel retired from Grand Valley State, he continued to give lectures at Fountain Street Church, such as a 3-week evening class, 2 hours each session. This was in April of 1997, and these were titled Shadows. April 15, Shadows, Theirs and Ours. April 22, God's Shadow. April 29, Out of the Shadows. And there were numerous other classes like these, many of which are recorded at Fountain Street Church. For several years while I was at Fountain Street Church, I was part of a men's group that included Roel, and I would often drive him to our meetings and then drive him home again. And then when I left Fountain Street Church in 2001, I would return to Grand Rapids for yearly visits to family and friends, and these also typically included a visit with Roel and with Eni in their home. More recently, after Roel moved to Colorado, we would have lengthy phone conversations, which included one just a couple of weeks before he died, and knowing that this would probably be our last opportunity to talk, I got a chance to ask him a couple of questions that I'd not been clear on. I want to read you some of my notes from that conversation. These are notes from February 26, and just less than 2 weeks before his death on March 8. Roel feels death is days, weeks away at most. Very tired, but I note that his memory is still completely intact. Talked about his interest in Jung already in high school and the mutual interest shared by Eni and him, important in the relationship, he said. He said he regretted not hearing Jung when he came to speak in Amsterdam, but he had a chess tournament that took priority for him at that time. I then asked him about playing chess at Calvin College and whether it was true that he had played up to 10 students blindfolded. No, he said, it was only 3, 4 at most. Well, I said, what about when you were open-eyed? Oh, he replied, he could easily handle 20 to 25 or more players open-eyed. We talked about what he termed the halcyon years at Fountain Street Church. His best years, he said, as an adult, his lectures there, and also it was a boon, he said, to Grand Valley State that a professor would teach at Fountain Street Church for both students and a general audience. He had a relationship with Fountain Street Church for about 20 years, which included delivering a couple of sermons. Very difficult, he said, to leave Calvin College. His views on homosexuality and premarital sex were not acceptable there, so he and Eni decided to leave. Some asked why he didn't go to Harvard or Yale, etc. But he said he was very happy to be at Grand Valley State, that it worked out very well. He wanted me to say hi for him to Flossie, my wife, and to Marty Yarrington, our mutual friend, which is where we were staying. Then he grew tired, speech difficult. I expressed my great appreciation to him. He said it was mutual. My notes end with my comment, what a man Roel is, and how fortunate I have been to know him. Roel taught me that the psyche is real. He took the inner life of dreams and the unconscious as fully a part of reality. He taught me how to approach my dreams in relation to my outer life and how to approach certain outer life events as if they were dreams. And so I will miss having this person in my life to whom I could bring my deepest philosophical, religious, and psychological questions. Bring them to one who has already been there pondering these questions for years. I have no one quite like him to whom I can turn in this regard. And I thank you for this opportunity to speak of my brilliant, witty, humble, and generous mentor and friend. Thank you.